Welcome to Bounty Hunt, the first in-person edition of the Utini Network podcast, where we look at all the extra content in the Star Wars universe. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me in person for the first time ever, and maybe the last, is the full complement of characters. First off, on my diagonal, we have Dr. Corey Helton. Welcome.
Hello. Happy to be here in person, which is kind of weird, not gonna lie, but still, I'm excited.
It feels like it's like the Drew Barrymore show or something. It's like, hi guys, welcome to the couch.
I know. I feel like I'm kind of naturally going into this radio voice, like more so than usual, because we're in person.
Yeah. Hey guys, so we're talking about Boba Fett here. We also have to my right, the inimitable man who's gonna drive me to the Charlotte airport in a couple hours, Dr. Charles Henkel.
True story. This may be the last time that you hear from us because we're apparently driving through a winter storm.
It's gonna be great.
Make it back to Charlotte. Wes might live in Asheville. We're not sure yet. He's still stuck, but we'll figure it out. We'll worry about that after.
Well, if he is stuck, you are witnessing the first recorded footage of the new Asheville resident, the light of the city, the light of the country, Wes Jenkins.
Welcome to my new home.
Welcome to my crib. Just have a look around.
Just so everybody understand, Eric is leaving early because his flight got canceled. He's leaving because he doesn't want to clean up this mess that we've made.
He told us.
3 or 4 days.
And I'll also get to watch the Cowboys game uninterrupted tomorrow. So that's what we're doing. If this is your first time watching or listening to Bounty Hunt, what a choice. This is our show where us, on the Living Birth podcast at UT, like to talk about all the shows that come up in Disney+. Today, we're talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1, Episode 3, The Streets of Mos Vespa, as we call it. It's not, it's Mos Espa. But we are going to briefly recap what happened in the episode. We're going to talk about it, things we liked, things we didn't, and just overall thoughts about the show. Very laid back, and we hope that you enjoy. If you're watching this on the YouTube premiere, I believe we're doing tomorrow, feel free to have some talks in the chat. Obviously, we won't be able to chat with you on this one as we usually do, but we will be back to our usual Sunday live streams next week for episode 4.
And we had planned to do it live too, I will say, but the internet sucks. So
it's not as good.
Yep, we're gonna record it and premiere it anyways.
Yeah, when you take 2 years hooking up your computers to Ethernet cords to make sure that you can live stream, it turns out it's not easy to replicate in Airbnb.
That is correct.
But without further ado, gentlemen, let's talk about what happened in this week's episode of the Book of Boba Fett. We open up with a meeting with Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, and their lovely droid companion, where Boba's learning about the territories of Tatooine, who owns what, and then he gets a surprise appointment from a water merchant who's complaining about street youths that are stealing his water. Boba and Fennec then go investigate and see the gang is filled with cyber-enhanced kids who all have these cool bikes. They just need jobs. They just need water, man. So Boba hires them on the spot, tells the water merchant to give them back some money, honestly, and he goes back to his bacta tank to go to another flashback. In the flashback, Boba, newly robed, newly gaffy-sticked, leaves the tribe and talks to the Pike leader in town about tribute that he owes them, owns the Tuskens by mistake. The Pike leader says he's good, but there's already another gang that is claiming the territory. Boba freaks out about this because he then goes back to the Tusken tribe to find they have all been wiped out while Boba is away, and he sees the little Justice League sign of the gang that did it. Boba then is unceremoniously ripped out of his back-to-bath by Black Chrysanthemum, and an epic fight scene ensues with a very moist, slippery Boba Fett and Black Chrysanthemum. However, luckily for him, the new gang comes in, stabs Chrysanthemum, and helps out in the fight, which eventually ends up with Chrysanthemum being defeated. The Hutt twins then arrive to apologize for sending an assassin to kill Boba Fett and offer an apology gift. A freaking baby Rancor and a keeper, Danny Trejo, who may have a character name, but I don't care. It's Danny Trejo, the Rancor keeper. They then tell him that he can sell Chrysanthemum back to the gladiators, but Boba says, you know what? I don't think so. Chrysanthemum, you're free. And Chrysanthemum runs away in a totally normal fashion. Fennec then tells Boba Fett that, you know what, they need to go and see the mayor. And after the Major Domo tries again to tell them the mayor's not in, they find out the Major Domo is running away in a speeder, and a chase ensues. He is then chased by the gang that Boba hires in their chrome-colored speeders through the streets of Mos Espa, ending with the mayor crashing into a stand full of Melu runs and Boba Fett landing with his jetpack. They ask where the mayor is, and the Major Domo says he's with the Pikes, the mayor is working with the Pikes, and we as an audience see that more Pikes have now landed on Tatooine to deal with Boba. So boys, a lot in this episode. Shorter episode, but a dense episode. Let's go around the horn here. This is around the horn. That's what it is. And we are going... I'll give you points based on your answers. Rate this 1 to 10. Wes, start us out this week. 1 to 10. Streets of Mos Espa.
So this episode had a lot of good parts in it. It had some pieces that kind of helped us with the backstory between the gap from Return of the Jedi and where we're at now. So I appreciated that. But there were some aspects of the show that were kind of off-putting. Some of the CGI, obviously you could tell that they didn't get the same budget as The Mandalorian, so we're going to have to be fine with that. But it seems like it was a setup episode for what is to come. They did let us know that when Bib Fortuna was taken over, he couldn't control everything, so he had to disperse control to three different.
I like that talk in the beginning,
places. So I did like that, but overall, I'd probably give this episode a 6.4.
6.4. So Corey?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to have a conversation about. This is gonna be a lesson to see, describe how we can be positive and respectful while also voicing disagreement. I think to some.
I think respect is. We're gonna rule with respect.
That's right. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna go as far as say I did not like this episode, like straight up. I think I would give it as low as a 4.
Ooh, that's historic.
Yeah, it is probably the lowest score I've ever given a TV show. On the show. So I don't know. I think we have a lot to talk about. I think there was a few things that really stood out as exceptionally cool, but I feel like much more of this episode kind of leans towards exceptionally bad for a lot of reasons. So I'm excited to talk about it. There's a lot of discourse online about this episode too, and I hope that we can frame this conversation in a way that is separated from that.
Yeah, if only there had been the Martez sisters, I know you would have loved it more. Charles, what's your thoughts 1 to 10?
Yeah, so I agree. Far and away, my least favorite episode of the entire season so far. I think that every moment of this episode, I either loved it or I really disliked it. There was not a whole lot that happened where I was just kind of like in the middle.
It's an extreme episode for sure.
It really was. I mean, the Rancor stuff was awesome. But if I had to point out one thing that probably bothered me the most, I know we'll unpack this in a bit, it's that I felt like they were walking back some things that they've spent a decent amount of time establishing. And
that we loved. I mean, last week's Bounty Hunt, we said it was one of the best episodes of live action television ever.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm curious with a relatively short show, why we're spending time creating something and then walking it back. But that said, I'm going to give the overall episode 6.0. Probably about the lowest I've ever ranked anything, book, TV show ever. But there is stuff to love, so I want to make sure we do focus on that.
For sure.
Boba's super short show. Somehow I'll get that. I'm unfortunately kind of, in agreement with you guys. We did watch this with each other on Wednesday night. First time we've ever watched anything together.
Wild experience.
Wild experience. We did this and then Rogue One, which if you're on our Patreon, that commentary is going to be coming your way. And so we've had a couple days to digest it, talk about it a bit. And I'm basically in agreement with the fact that I was very overall disappointed, I think, with the evolution. Again, last week's episode was so good.
Yep.
And there's just a lot in this episode that I think on the page, had it been a comic or a book, I'm like, okay, I get that. That could be interesting and fleshed out nicely, or I would have noticed some of the issues. Because I think a lot of the issues that I'm going to talk about today are technical, are like directorial, are editing, things like that. That I think you have to figure out in a show. But I agree with you as well, Charles, that a lot of the stuff got walked back. And there's one point we're going to talk about where I'm not really settled on whether I'm okay with it or not for a bunch of different reasons. So I'm also going to say, let's go a 6.6. Let's go execute rating 66 here. But let's begin with some of the new characters we got in this episode. The gang. The new biker gang. I remember when we got the trailer for Book of Boba Fett, one of the last ones, the girl with the arm on the bike was the thing, and Twitter freaked out. Like, who is this character? Who interesting? And that has been a big talk of discourse this week about people saying, does this biker gang fit in Star Wars? This is the most un-Star Wars thing. Or people are like, this is American graffiti in Star Wars. This is the most Lucas thing ever.
Sure.
So how did you guys feel about the gang just as a concept and then as the execution of the gang? We're not going to talk about the part we're all thinking of. We'll save that for a little bit. So just the gang on its surface.
I think first gut reaction, I like the principle a lot. Like we've not really seen a whole lot of the cybernetic stuff. Some of that's been in books and stuff actually.
Yeah, definitely. Like in Latin, Jose Older's Last Shot, most recently with all the cybernetic augmentations.
Yeah, right. So that's not a new concept in Star Wars. So I fully disagree that people say, oh, it's not Star Wars. No, it's not. That's factually incorrect.
Very
We've seen
Star Wars.
it lots of times before, actually. Does it like differ too much? Is it too much contrast with like the desert of Tatooine? I don't know, maybe, but I think as a general concept, I really liked it. I thought they were cool characters too. The idea of there being sort of like homeless street youths is kind of cool.
Yeah,
I like that. That they feel like they have to
very cyberpunk, like living on the streets, working their bodies up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, and the whole principle around like Boba showing up, being like, "You work for me now," and they don't know what they didn't know what to do with that.
Okay.
And he's like, get the hell in line. You know, I love that. That was cool. I really like that aspect a lot.
Totally.
They, I like the atmosphere and the story that whole portion told with the biker gang. So, like, there are no jobs in Mos Espa, so there's no work there, and you have merchants that are charging more, that are hiking up their prices, whether it be for water, whether it be for food.
That's a good point. It's like the dishonesty of the streets are sort of at unrest, right? So like maybe it takes the crime lord to like step in and like be like, this is the law, you're gonna friggin' follow it.
Yeah, like Bobo was like, they're charging how much for water, and it's like, you should probably know that, my guy. Like if you're running the place.
Exactly. So I like that part of it. That was great, especially in just centering it around these people that some fans, some viewers could actually relate to. It was great. And then like the cybernetic parts, especially the one
cool.
with the ankle, the
foot.
Yeah, when we started kicking him out.
That was cool.
That was great. So I appreciated that part of it. So now we have a better idea of how the streets of Mos Espa are living right now. So
I like that.
which could further the story on in later episodes.
Definitely.
I think it's cool that Boba Fett is a crime lord, right? Like at the end of the day, he's a crime lord.
Objectively, that's cool.
Yeah, and like he even says, like, I'm the crime lord, you know, to the Major Domo in episode 1. And yet, even though if he owns this territory, he'd be getting kickback from this water merchant, right? Like he would actually stand personally to benefit from these crazy prices and all this stuff, but he is actually kind of interested in making this territory that he runs like functional for everybody that's there.
Right.
So it just kind of furthers that narrative of like, yes, crime lord, yes, bounty hunter, but like also kind of a good person, right? Like to a degree.
With respect.
Reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. And so that part's cool. The biker gang it totally fits for me in terms of like it makes sense that they would have to do whatever they have to do to survive on these streets. Like that tracks for me. The cybernetic stuff is cool, and I hope that we learn why they all have those. Like, and I want to see them use them more. Like, so it's not just like, oh yeah, this looks cool. Like I wanted them to see them actually functional. The one thing that I know you alluded to that did bother me when we watched the episode, and I brought it up right away, was I felt that the bikes were they kind of took me out of it.
The colors,
like I immediately, they're bright red.
Power Ranger vibes.
Power Ranger bikes,
We all immediately were like, go Power Rangers. and I do actually agree with the point that it is Lucas. Like it is American Graffiti, but that is not Star Wars Lucas. Like his main aesthetic choice always in the original trilogy, in the time period that this was the universe should look lived in. Like these are things off of a used car lot. This is not, and these did not at all fit that aesthetic, nor the aesthetic of anything else that we see in the rest of this show. So it was jarring.
We have seen like stark contrast on Tatooine before, right? In Phantom Menace, when Padme's ship like landed in Tatooine, it was like that's why they had to land on the outside, right? 'Cause it's so shiny and pretty. It would have been a huge, attraction. Like people would have seen it and it would have been noticed, right? So I think I can get behind that. Like I think I like the idea in the principle. If you take them off of Tatooine, of the bike gang and their cybernetics and the color bikes and all that kind of stuff, I think it will work fine on like Coruscant. But like I don't know, I can definitely get behind that. Maybe it was too much contrast to do.
I'm hoping maybe in the future we see, because this gang seems to be sticking around for a bit, although we'll talk about later, like maybe things don't stick around in this show. But I think that if we had seen them like getting the sand off their bikes, we meet them like if you're obsessively cleaning your bike, that's all you have, it's all you own, your identity as a gang is these bikes. I can get that, but again, I think that maybe works better in a comic or a novel where they could have that time.
And we've never seen colors like this on Tatooine. Not a single time. In Tatooine, there's probably more, real talk, there's probably more screen time for Tatooine than any other planet in Star Wars.
Easily.
Even the pod racers, even the most souped up, mechanical thing that there was, looked nothing close to
it was a choice, for sure.
So a bit dingy. Like, and I didn't... And I hear that, for me, like, I agree that I like the gang in concept. Again, I like the idea of Boba seeing these kids, and I honestly think they probably remind him of himself in Clone Wars, where it's like, I'm a young kid, I'm on my own, I'm just trying to find jobs. he's probably like, yeah, that sucked, and I wish that the crime lords hadn't always tried to take advantage of, like, when he was with Aura Singh and Bosk and all that stuff. Like, that sucked. So maybe there's an element of that I like bringing in. And I like them all as characters. None of them really took me out. Like, the Major Domo still majorly takes me out every time I see him. Just he doesn't seem to be in the same movie as everyone else, but I thought their performances were fine. I think they're interesting. Maybe we get more bike stuff that is interesting. Maybe we don't. But the Rancor in the room with the bikes.
Yes.
Let's go right into it. So this episode ended with the chase. That was like the last big thing. And when you're watching a TV show, a movie, your third act, your final thing has to be what sticks in people's mind, which is why the first episode of The Mandalorian ending with the Grogu reveal was incredible. It was perfect because we're like, and last episode with the Tusken ritual dance was incredible. Like, it gets you. And this ended with the slowest speeder chase in the history of the world. And and all of us, as we ended, we had this moment where I think every time we end an episode of something, we were like, why didn't I like that? Like, it's always an interesting of like, And the speeder chase, for some reason, we've seen GIFs online. The Twitter GIFs have been amazing about it. Like, of people on their walkers and stuff. Yeah. But the speeders, they took the turns really slow. Like, it just seemed like a very easy, like, non-threatening thing.
It was hard to watch that live together, too, because, like, I think somebody asked about, I don't know, maybe a third way through the scene, we're like, is this bad? Does this look bad to you guys? And everybody wanted to say it, but somebody else, I don't know who said it.
Well, because we watched Solo last night, and I know, Corey, you've had issues with that speeder chase in the past, but watching that after this is like, they're flying down Corellia.
No, of course, that seems to be like kind of the inspiration for this style of speeder chase is what they did in Solo, which I've admittedly said multiple times on this trip even that, like, I've never liked that scene. It feels weird and out of place, and, like, every single speeder we've ever seen in Star Wars has been super, super fast. I mean, even poor farmer Owen Lars's speeder from Tatooine in the very first Star Wars film is fast as shit. I mean, like, it's like, you know, we have so when they did it in Solo, they made them slower. The first time ever we've seen slower speeders in Solo. I didn't really like it that much, and, like, we were comparing this bike scene to the Solo chase, and we pulled that up. We were, like, playing Trivial Pursuit last night and watched, we had it on the TV, and we watched that scene, and we're like, okay, this is a lot faster than the Tatooine speeder chase was.
Well, and you notice because in the Solo scene, you know, they hit the droid, and the droid, like, explodes and bumps up, and these ones, there's a droid freaking out, and they're like, sorry, pardon me, and it's like, whoa, these kids on their bikes, and it's like, you should be terrified you're gonna die in a speeder chase.
There's an episode of Futurama where they're going to the government office, the central government office, and everybody's riding around these super slow, stupid speeder things like this. And this guy's like, he's like, oh no, I'm gonna crash, and he's like, and there's this like long 8 seconds.
Well, it's Austin Powers too, when he's like, out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's almost comical. And we watched this scene again today to try to, like, kind of piece together why.
But maybe we were wrong.
So bad.
You know, give it another shot.
Yeah, maybe we're wrong. And why did we have this gut reaction that it looked so bad initially? And it's a lot of just camera shots and angles and there are scenes in which people are static and the bikes move past them, and it looks like the bikes are moving very, very slow in comparison to the static pieces.
Relative speed is tough. Like on the pod race, we talk about the pod racers in Phantom Menace, why they're so blinding, is that George was in control of how fast the environment was moving, because all you get is that little first-person view, or you see a pod racer and there's all sand. Yeah. So as fast as the sand goes is how fast the pod racer is going. But the second you have a person in the background of a shot moving at normal speed, our brains are amazing. Like we can calculate how fast we think that's going, and it seemed so. Like, okay, get to the end of it. Like, you're not going to make it out because all these things are slow.
20-30 miles an hour max.
Well, can I say, too, that the characters that were in it also, I think, played into me not enjoying it as much? Because I've always said I like the Major Domo as a character. And I actually still do like him as a character, but he is so goofy. Yeah. And he's in the front speeder, and he's... looking back over his shoulder, he's knocking over paint cans, and it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon of like, I don't know, like one of those dastardly cartoons.
Yeah, he was like, I'm like, bro,
I had
your boss is with the Pikes now. Like, you got.
I know. I had like the Wiggles vibes or something like that.
Yeah,
It just felt goofy and weird and
in a show about a crime lord on Tatooine, right?
Trying to kill each other. Yeah. And even the biker gang too. I mean, they're like, whatever, and it's just like puttering along. It was dumb. Like,
Yeah.
It felt like that scene in Back to the Future. I brought that up actually. Like when Biff's like great grandson or whatever like freaking chases him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like
And
that.
I think that if this were in a comic, the static images with the speed lines, you could have made this chase like really intense, or like in novels you can describe speed, and it's something that
the train.
Yeah, the train.
Dude, to go from the train, that terrifying speed of the train to
felt that
this speeder's like this was a really harsh turn.
Yeah. And if it's budget, you got to know that we don't, because this episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez, who is the showrunner, who like his thing has been action in his career, and which is why for some reason I was very surprised.
Yeah, and we had the conversation last night too. Like, how the hell did this thing get past the editing process? Because like, you know, there's lots of documentaries and stuff about like the creation of the Phantom Menace, and you get some of those pieces, and a lot of people said that like you can sense the tension in the room, like, and it shows people like viewing things, and like people openly talked about after this whole thing was done of like they didn't feel like they could talk to George Lucas or tell him like, hey, we don't like the way this is going because it's his baby and all this kind of stuff. So it ended up like there was no feedback process all the way through it, so it hurt the final cut of the film. Which admittedly now what you get on Disney Plus is even better than what it was then. Right? CGI was pretty bad even at the time, and like, how did this happen? I mean, this is a Disney Plus show. I mean, I assume that there's a lot of like oversight on this type of thing. I don't understand how this scene made it all the way through all the viewing process of people looking at it and saying, hey, this looks good, the production looks good. Even the CGI was bad in a lot of places, right?
It was rough.
So, I just don't know how this, like, I'm a little disappointed just in general as a viewer and a big Star Wars fan that this is a final cut that is going to be a smear on live action Star Wars, I'm afraid, for a long time. Which sucks. Which really sucks. Like, you know, we wanna watch this stuff and enjoy it and think it's awesome. And there's definitely cool things about this episode, but like this is by far the most obvious, like, feels like a big mistake, big error that we've seen, with live action.
You might be able to, I guess, get past the budget concern. So if they had a small budget for the CGI and the technical and the cameras and all that, that shouldn't also weigh on top of the acting. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Major Domo didn't make me feel like he was running for his life.
Yeah.
No.
He made me feel like if he lost a race, and that was it.
And it was just like, there were so many obstacles. Oh, I'm going to barrel into this, I'm going to barrel into this, I'm going to barrel into this, and it totally didn't fit. Like, what's so cool about Star Wars is that there are so many projects with different tones. Like, Clone Wars doesn't feel like Rebels, doesn't feel like Mandalorian, doesn't feel like this. And they could all vary, but Boba Fett has very much set a tone. And I think that, all these things connected didn't really match it. Which is interesting, because in the same episode now, we also got a very intense scene with Black Chrysanthemum. I mean, the one moment, as we were all watching it, the second that Chrysanthemum reaches into the back and grabs him, we're all like, oh! Like,
dude, that was unexpected. We did. That was
screamed.
one of the most shocking scenes, like, ever in Star Wars. Like, there's absolutely almost a jump scare. Like, seriously.
Which was great, and we the fight, and I think the fight choreo overall was pretty good. This is a very fun thing.
That was a fun scene, I think.
And then it ends, and there's two things that I want to get your guys' take on. Number one of the cool things about Chrysanthemum coming in is that he is so obviously from the comics. Like, this is a comics character, which means they took the source material that he is in and put him in live action very specifically. He wasn't accidentally in concept drawings. This was from a comic book.
Right.
In that comic book, he hangs out with Boba Fett. Like, so that's one thing that in Boba being like recommendation from me. Like, it felt like they didn't know each other, and that was odd. And two, I find it interesting that they bring in Chrysanthemum as this just as no dialogue. Oh my God, we all know who he is. Last week, this week there's one fight, and then he's like, you know what, you're free, and he doesn't join the gang. He runs away in the most buffoonery run I've seen in Star Wars in a long time.
Dude, we've been making fun of that all weekend. Like, do that Chrysanthemum run. It was this awkward jog. Where's he jogging to? He's in the middle of the freaking desert.
And it's not even like...
It's almost like the Padme run from episode 2.
It is a little. It is. But it's also not like the like a bantha thing last week was funny, but fit so perfectly.
It was intentionally funny.
Yeah, and this was like...
This was a joke by accident.
Here's this awesome comics character that has met Boba Fett, so we're going to bring him in, have him fight once, and then we're going to say, oops, never mind, you don't know each other, and then run away into the... I mean, maybe he's going to come back, I don't know, but
That's what I was gonna say.
But-
to be fair, we don't know.
Yeah,
we
but
don't know.
just
We
to
don't
have him
It seemed like a
doodle off in
it
favor
seemed
of
like-
these new street gangs was weird.
Right. It did feel kind of odd in that regard too. And I will say that everything else about Black Chrysanthemum outside of like his goofy little jog away, which is admittedly a 1 second scene.
I mean,
right? It doesn't really matter
that's
that much in the grand scheme of things.
It's silly, but
if we
it's
had
fun.
if we had $1 for all the 1 second changes we would make in Star Wars, we'd be all filthy rich.
Absolutely.
There's so many goofy cuts and choices and things like that. I don't really care about
Yeah,
that. But yeah, it is kind of weird that like they're, I like that the Hutts gave him as a gift. That was cool. I
Yeah.
really like that. I wish that Boba would have been like, "You work for me now, but you're free." I wish that.
Yeah, like,
it's
do you
so
want to join
easy
the
do.
gang? Because he looks great. The design is amazing. The fighting was good. Like, it is Black Chrysanthemum
Yeah.
from the comics. Like, he looks
The-
really cool.
The street gang fight was cool too, with all their interesting weapons, and interesting takes.
Yeah.
That scene was a little bit dark. I can't wait to go back and watch it on a.
But she just came like shanked Black Chrysanthemum.
Yeah,
Like,
really did.
damn.
shanked him. It was
Black
freaking.
Chrysanthemum looked like he was moving in slow motion to me. In all those in that dark scene when he first pulled him out of the Bacta tank. It was
Totally.
like when he was about to punch, it just looked like he's going very slow and just
kinda looked like
walking
that.
very slow.
Also, can we talk about how Boba like absolutely got his ass kicked in that scene? Like he
man.
took like 3 really hard punches.
Oh yeah, the electro punch where he had like
In the face.
the knuckles with the electricity. Bam!
And the
Then he got-
throw where his
he got-
back hits
yeah.
against that
Yeah.
wall,
He hits
like
the
that.
Bacta tank.
And he's in the middle of a Bacta bath. He's got like a
Stunt double.
loincloth on.
I know.
Yeah.
The diaper.
Like the stunt double
Yeah,
went
hit
through
with
some
his
stuff.
yeah, hit with his arm.
He gets
too,
bitten. He gets bitten in the hand
Oh, yeah,
too,
he's-
like
yeah.
super hard. Like
He's a biter. I forgot.
Yeah. Luckily, he's right next to a Bacta tank. So
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting choice, which I think it makes me weirdly more excited for Obi-Wan, and because Deborah Chow is making and directing every single episode of Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And this is one where I saw, clearly what happened in the last couple episodes had ideas, but they didn't quite measure up to the next director, and it feels kind of like how we felt about Rise of Skywalker in a bit of like, you didn't take the ball and run with it. You took the ball and went back a few yards, and this is the ball I actually wanted instead, and then tried to go forward and
Right.
a little bit odd with
There are
Chrysanthemum.
definitely some small things that I did very much like about both of these scenes, the speeder chase and the Black Chrysanthemum thing. And we didn't talk about this. The 2 Easter eggs that are in the speeder chase were pretty cool. We have the Maylurons.
The Melu runs from Rebels,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was an interesting choice, and we all recognized it immediately. And we were like, "Oh, Maylurons!" That was kind of fun.
Absolutely.
That was fun. It was a fun choice. The
Connects the galaxy.
only friggin' fruit in Star Wars.
That's it.
I'm fine with that.
They're very rare, but also the only fruit.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I love that. That was funny. Also, I saw this on Reddit. I think we talked about it. Like the classic trope inside of a chase where like they smash through the people carrying a piece of glass or a painting.
Yeah.
That was in there. Right? So the painting that they're carrying. Did you guys see this?
Yeah.
it was
The
a
painting-
Hutts, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
The Hutts, right?
Painting is a Hutts, and it's maybe it was Tim that showed us. Maybe actually, Tim's behind the camera. I appreciate you doing that, Tim.
Hey, buddy.
There's it's straight out of a Macquarie painting.
Oh, no way!
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
Macquarie painting, and it's like been adjusted or whatever, but that's what they're carrying is a
Yeah.
Hutts Macquarie
That's neat.
painting,
That's-
which is
I like
pretty
that.
cool.
That's
Yeah. Oh, and of
Totally
course we
Easter
saw. I'm going back. I'm pretty sure for the first time in the series we saw Boba Fett with a jetpack.
Yeah, we did.
Like he lands with a jetpack, which looks cool. I mean,
And if we're talking about Easter eggs, we also saw the pit droids with the mechanic
Yep,
from Mando,
right.
and we saw all the stormtrooper helmets on
Yeah,
spikes.
yeah.
in the flashback connecting it, yeah, like
And that
all,
was a lot of fun.
all the stuff in the flashbacks I'm still liking, which actually this does get us to the next point, which I want to take some time on because this is a complicated point.
Yeah, I want to talk about this too.
So in the flashback, all the Tuscan stuff we talked about last week, loved. Absolutely loved
So
the
funny.
Tuscans.
We were pretty mixed about it the first episode, and then last week we were like, I'm all in for this.
Yeah.
And then we had this stuff in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this episode, we get to talk with the Pikes. I love the fact that there's multiple gangs, and who am I supposed to give tribute to? And the Pikes show how good they are at business because they're like, we're gonna pay. I just don't want to be screwed. I'm
Like, trust us, we
respect.
understand the concept of protection money. Like,
Yeah, but I already sent a check, and I'm not. Do I have to Venmo him? Like you know.
I know, right?
But then Boba comes back, and all the Tuscans. We don't see the warrior or the child, but we see the leader. And we see all have been burned to the ground and killed. And there's been a large discourse online about this because last week we talked. One of the coolest things about bringing the Tuscans in like this was giving indigenous representation, giving land ownership to a native population in Star Wars. And it's like that's huge. That's great. Tim Morrison being an indigenous New Zealander, like all these things are great. And then this episode, we take the native population and kill them all for story. And it's like, and it's been interesting seeing this online because obviously it's 4 white dudes we know what we know the history that we know, but it's not going to be as personal as there's been some fans online that say, one, this is kind of a little bit of a slap in the face to being like, so you give us a tease and get us excited about Native representation, a way to kill us again. Mm-hmm. But two, I've seen people be like, also that's historical. Mm-hmm. Like that's what happened. We made you fall in love with Native populations and made you realize we have also been slaughtering Native people throughout history as well. Yeah. So in a way that like for however we can understand for the story, do you think it made sense as far as, like you said, Charles, setting up things and then immediately bringing them down? And also, do we think, from our limited perspective, what we knew, is this okay? Is it more effective because it's more realistic? How did this hit us?
I think, well, one point I just want to bring up is, what is the point of them doing that? Yeah. Like, if we're trying to view this just from a story aspect, like, what is the point of them doing that? I don't think the point was for social commentary. Like, maybe it's there, but I think the point within, like, in universe was to try to give Boba Fett some sort of vendetta against this biker gang.
Absolutely.
Okay. However, at the same time, I feel like he already had reasons to have a vendetta against them. Yeah. He was already familiar with them when he saw the farmer getting beat up and them spray painting his house and rolling out. They're another crime entity, like, operating within the space that he's trying to own. So, like, he had reasons. So did that need to happen? And I hate using that word, right? Because nothing ever needs to happen in these stories. But I feel like it didn't have to have the same outcome in the story and put Boba Fett in the same mindset that he needed to get. Now, I will say, and hopefully this isn't taken in a bad way, I thought that it was very impactful the way that he discovered the Tuskens.
Oh, he played it really well.
I thought it was done very well. When he pulled out the small gaffy of the kid and laid it down, I mean, like, that, the choral music, like, it was beautifully done.
Yeah.
But there was that, like, is this a little tone deaf? Like, is this, you know?
Yeah, I did have that feeling a little bit. This is, everybody has their own personal perspective and background and that sort of stuff. And it didn't really, I don't think I would have noticed it as heavily, Eric, if you hadn't brought it up. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the thing, and I'm also not very connected to that, that discourse online and stuff. And, like, I definitely, now that we've talked about it, I see it, and I can get it. And, like, I mean, I feel like the last episode had a lot of, like, you had the Hawkeye at the end of the episode. It felt very cool and cultural, and like, I felt like it sort of, it took a lot away the, what's the word? Like, the ownership, it took a lot of that away from the Tuskens, right?
Yeah, they became then just bodies again. Like they're kind of made. They're used to be killed in Star Wars in so many episodes because they're the bad guys, and Anakin kills them as bodies, and then now we're like, oh, they're more than that. They're a whole culture. And now it's like, damn it.
Yeah, there's all this principle about like we feel weak and whatever, and Boba had that whole cool conversation about like, you're not weak, you're strong.
Every grain of every grain of sand in the Dune Sea.
Right. So like we did all this. We did all this to really build up the power of the Tuskens, and they have kind of realized that they're warriors and fighters and that sort of stuff, and then Boba goes on a single errand, and they all get annihilated.
Yeah. Also, Boba, who can kick all their asses in a bar by himself after being pretty weak.
Right.
You're telling me the entire Tusken, who also are pretty mobile, so they found them and then wiped them all out in an hour.
Like 2 hours or something? Yeah, like, I hate that. Like, that is very much contrary to everything that we had in the last episode. Mm-hmm. I mean, they took down a damn train. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, they
have speeders now.
The Tusken warrior alone.
Yeah.
With what we saw her do in the last episode would have been able to
we told her
handle it. I mean, and she was not there, so like we can presume that she's
which is also like, so they're both gone at the same time?
Yeah.
So does that make us believe that it was the original biker gang, Niktos, or whatever we're going to call them?
Kinton Striders.
The Kinton Striders, the Justice League.
I mean, the Justice.
Yeah, is it them? Is it a lot more of them? Do they have something that we don't know? Is it somebody else entirely?
Was it the Pikes or something? Well, and they just spray painted the sign.
Because they tagged it.
Yeah. They've made a point to where they show them putting up the Justice League sign on everything they do. Yeah. So that would be a good curveball they threw in there.
It would be a good curveball, but it should have freaking happened in this episode. It should have shown in this episode.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that till you said it, Corey, about what it does to the power of the Tuskens. Because I think I realized subconsciously I had been like, I respect these warriors so much now, and I think that's so fun. Because they, this particular tribe of Tuskens, because they said there's other ones that are mirrors, but like these guys protect their own and they're powerful and do all these things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the other gang has been kind of like bumbling idiots. We've seen them only attack defenseless people.
Yeah.
Like that guy in the first episode.
Yeah, alcoholics, yeah.
Yeah,
They have a
like,
drinking problem.
Yeah,
Their chronic health is probably really bad.
Yeah, and the second they fought anyone that had any measure of fighting skill, which was Boba, and he wasn't even at his top fighting form yet. He still had training to do.
And he had a wooden gaffy stick.
Yeah, and I'm. Unless they had like, oh hey, by the way, we all have thermal detonators, rah! But
all that said though, too, I do want to acknowledge the fact that like we're 4 white dudes talking about a lot of this stuff too, and so I would actually encourage you, like if you're watching this, thank you for watching this, but like find some other voices talking about this too, because we're only gonna have so much insight into how this makes certain people watching this show 100%. Feel and like what it means to them. So like look for, and there probably aren't enough, look for some Native American voices like in the Star Wars fandom that are talking about this, because they're obviously going to have a lot more insight. But
I love that.
But I do want to talk about, too, the overall idea, the big idea that I mentioned at the very beginning of the episode of walking stuff back.
Yeah.
Because this is just one example of it, what they do with the Tuskens. Spent twice as long as any other episode building them up, and now they're gone. The Chrysanthemum thing, we introduced him, made him look super cool, and now maybe he's gone forever.
Yep.
We introduced the Hutts, had this epic entrance, and then the very next episode, they're like, sorry, we're leaving.
Yeah.
Our bad, tried to kill you. Yeah, we tried.
We're not the big bads the Pikes are.
We don't even like this place. But what were you doing here last week?
I know.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Like, maybe they just want there to be a lot of, I don't know, uncertainty, and we're not supposed to know what's going on right now.
First week at a new job, well, who's my boss? What's my job?
Well, and maybe in hindsight it all makes sense, but I just have to feel that like if we're spending so much time building these cool things up and then taking them away the very next episode, like it just kind of feels like we're continually having the rug pulled out, and I don't know where we're going, and we're almost 50% through the show.
I know, we still haven't made like really hard progress through. I mean, we've gotten a little bitty tiny thing about like there's this kind of gang war thing going on, but that idea isn't present in every episode. We haven't learned anything really.
Yeah, like
we still had the damn scene with the table.
They're sitting around the table.
Sitting around the table.
Yeah, like is it Pikes? If it's Boba versus Pikes, then all the flashbacks of him going to the Pikes and them being like, "We're totally cool with protection. We get that. Who do we pay?" That also seems odd, because if the Pikes end up being the big bad, that like they are the ones that tipped off the Justice League to know where the Tuskens were, but they wouldn't have known that Boba was coming to see them because he didn't like call ahead. I don't know. I think you're right. When it ends, obviously hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
We'll see how this all goes. But I do hope that when we have episodes like episode 2 with the director, I forgot her name, but that is so intentional about a really fleshing out an episode, and they gave her the freedom to do that. I mean, she took 35 of those minutes in flashback to build this up, and then they literally burned it.
Yeah.
I hope that
This is a really short episode.
decision.
It's a short episode too. We haven't really talked about that in comparison to this.
it's like a 37 minute instead of 50 something.
It's fine to do, but I feel like this was a bad time in which to do a really short episode. Like I feel like you can only do a really short episode if you get a really good story in a short period of time, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels like 15 more minutes would have fixed a lot of our problems that we had with a lot of this.
Yeah.
Let some of the moments breathe at least.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, because we know a lot about how The Mandalorian was done, and it's hard not to just compare the things that we're seeing in Mandalorian, but like we've seen all the behind the scenes gallery stuff that shows all the directors, like even if they didn't work on an episode, like they were there, like on set, like they're talking, they're taking notes, and it very much felt like ideas that were left in one episode were picked up in the next.
Yeah.
Nothing was immediately walked back on or reversed. And it kind of brings back some of those feelings about like sequel trilogy stuff that happened. So I wonder how much communication is there between the people that are running this show and the directors that are coming and going as compared to like Mando.
I was actually thinking that a few minutes ago too. Like I had a lot of that weird conflicting emotions I felt about Rise of Skywalker, like walking out of that, because you're like, we've done things to establish things that in one episode, one movie, and then we just flip it the next movie, right? We create Snoke, he's the big bad, we kill him off, right? That happened. We got this in this episode.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting in this episode. I think this helps our hero worship of creators a bit as well. Yeah. Because, Mandalorian Season 2, it gets done. There's the give Lucasfilm to Favreau Filoni kind of deal, and then Robbie Rodriguez does the Boba Fett episodes, and it's like, this is the best action, this is the coolest thing. And so far, he's directed the first and third episode, which have been far weaker than the second that he didn't direct. And Jon Favreau wrote this one.
Yeah.
And again, I think every Star Wars creator, every person is human. You're going to have good ones, you're going to have rough ones. Obviously, we're still watching all the episodes, but this is not like, oh, what a waste of our time.
Right.
But I do think it's cool to just recognize, like, it is very hard to create this stuff, and even the people that do amazing stuff one day are going to have some off weeks, and I think...
Or even, it's not even just they may have off weeks, they may have ideas and design choices that you will disagree with in one case or another, right? So I find it incredibly frustrating that Star Wars fans tend to be like, I just absolutely love everything Filoni does. I'm like, yeah, but you're like implying that they can never make decisions that you're going to disagree with, and that's not true. I mean, George Lucas himself, which we've seen his hero worship has been such an interesting thing. He made the original trilogy, everybody absolutely loved him. He also made the prequel trilogy, which was not good compared to the original trilogy to those fans, right? So, you know,
and the key is what you said at the beginning of this episode. We always respect these creators. The thing, and I think that's the difference, is that we're not calling for anyone to get fired or anyone to take over anything. We're just looking at it objectively, saying, you know, it's like a parent. Like, sometimes your kid, they're gonna do a good job. And sometimes they're going to go to a baseball game, they're going to go, you're going to strike out 4 times.
Right.
It's going to be like, you know what?
There doesn't have to be anything else other than I didn't like it. It's not, I didn't like it, let's cancel Star Wars. I didn't like it, let's fire Kathleen Kennedy. I didn't like it, let's get rid of Filoni. There's no second thing, right? It's just, I didn't like it, what's next?
Yeah, it's like, it's the West, it's like, hey, I didn't like it. Hey guys, there's more Boba Fett next week.
Yeah,
like, it's still cool that we're getting a freaking Boba Fett show.
How many more? We have, what, 4 more episodes?
4 more. Yeah, because it's 7.
4 more episodes, too. So, you know, I'm fine with it. I don't think the show is going to... I hope we don't leave the show with a negative feeling about it. You know,
but if we do, right? Like, we've had this conversation before.
Is there another show coming out this year?
Oh yeah, Kenobi cannot be bad. There's no way. But if we do walk away from this with a negative attitude, it was a fun experiment. We got a lot of information about Boba Fett that people have literally been wanting for 40 years.
That's true.
And we can just say, you know what, I'm not going to revisit it.
Yeah.
But,
and we learn from
that's
it.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine, right? Like, just move on and find the things that you love. It's fine.
And there are definitely things to like about the show.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Easily.
Oh, well, I just want to hit on that kind of as we round out this episode. Going forward, as Charles, you've been saying, we are in a weird spot now. We kind of don't know now what's going to stick in, because we were like, oh, it's the Tusken show. It's going to be half Tusken, half not. And now it's like, maybe never Tuskens. Like, the Pikes weren't even talked about till last episode, and now they might be the big bad. So, Chrysanthemum's going to join the crew. Chrysanthemum might be on, another planet by now.
He's still jogging out there.
He's still just, he's getting that cardio. He's going back to the
One way
sheep.
to jog, I mean.
So my question for you guys is, going forward, here, I'll say what I think and I want, and I want to hear what you guys think. Manage your expectations. We always try to say that. I really hope we're not done with the Tuskens. I really hope that this is a setback. I hope that the warrior is alive, or that he finds another tribe or something. And
maybe even the kid.
Yeah, I hope that Boba is now not going to just one-man army kill the gang as revenge. I hope that he does still stick in the Tusken culture a bit. I don't think the Speeder Bite gang is whole show now. I think that they might be in for another 2 episodes, but I don't think they're going to be like endgame with Boba. I do think now that the Pikes are going to be the big bad, and I'm cool with it. And even as I'm saying, I'm doubting it, right? I think that it's got to be a show about Boba establishing territory, and I think it's got to be. Okay, never mind. I'm already taking that back. I think that it's going to be about Boba establishing territory, and that table scene we get is like second to last episode now. I think that's going to be, hey, we've had a war, we're going to stop having a war.
That would be interesting.
I don't know. Wes, what do you think? Any of this?
I'm thinking this along the same lines. So, like, the main concept of this show is going to be that table scene where they're talking with the 3 different, like, I don't know, lords that are going over, and he needs to establish dominance over all of these cities. He's like, I'm the one that you're going to be answering to.
Yeah.
I also think, like, he's going to find a different tribe. He's going to find a different group of Tuskens, and he's going to have to convey that he understands their culture, and he knew this other tribe, and he needs to prove himself in a way. So that would be really interesting to see. But I also like. I want there to be each one of the 3 groups that are supposed to be controlling those 3 sectors of Tatooine or Mos Espa, to have their own little like army. So they of something they pull either from the comics, they pull from the EU. Like they could have like Boss could be there. They could have and then that's where we get more of Fennec Shand because we haven't got enough of her.
Yeah.
Going out a little bit.
Yeah, she's been on all these press tours, and I'm like, I need more Fennec. Because right now we got 4 Vespas and a Rancor. And I'm like, that's cool. You had the best assassin.
She did have that cool, rooftop scene.
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's gonna be the second half of the season. That's a great point. I also want to say, as you were talking, I just thought, what if his entire plan is to get all these people together and then give all the land to the Tuscans? What if he's like, I think he's got to bring them into the present. He's got to bring them into the present day somehow.
But they control the city though. That doesn't work. You can't have Tuscans ruling a city.
That's true. They don't want to be there. They don't want it.
They want to be in the desert in their tents. Come on.
It's like any person that lives outside. Like, why do I want to go into a city? It's disgusting.
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I'm pretty open-minded about this whole thing. I don't really have anything I need to see or I want to see or anything going forward. Like I know things that we're going to see, and I have an idea in my head about how I can see that it's going to fit together. Like the mafia table scene, right? The Godfather scene. I can kind of see that all coming together nicely. But I don't know. I'm pretty open-minded about what's going to happen. I try to reserve my judgment for the whole like what we're going to do until at least the season's over, because then you can at least see how it all fits together as far as that. I tried to do that with Mandalorian too, because there were things I didn't like about first season of Mando, and I had no idea where the hell it was going, right? So I don't know. I mean, I feel like you guys have said already that we don't really know much right now.
No, we'll probably go back to Sanctuary at some point. Like that seems to be they built the set, like so they gotta.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I mean, when I like to watch the first time, like the first way through, I like to just sit back and enjoy. That's
no notes, just
And the second time through is the critiques.
That's one reason we try not to speculate too terribly much on the show too, because it manages your expectations, like you say. And I will say though,
this show's just the most wild with that, because it's like, what expectations? I don't know.
I don't know what the hell is happening. Yeah, I mean I will say that we got more Camino flashbacks this episode too.
Yeah,
I hope we keep getting more of that. That's been really cool. His face reflection in the glass with the ship flying off was epic.
Although I will say, if it costs a little too much money to make Camino again, just put that money in the speeders. Like, we get it. I've seen Camino. Honestly, just put the Clone Wars thing about Camino up there. Basically, like live action anyway.
Yeah,
it did. You mentioned the Rancor. We didn't really talk about the Rancor, so I just want to give that a shout out real quick. The fact that he has a baby Rancor that imprinted him like a little duckling is awesome. Great. And he says, I want to ride him. So,
I know.
My prediction.
I forgot about that. That was a really cool moment.
A war in the streets between the major factions, like a big blowout fight. Boba's on a Rancor during that fight. That'd be insane. And if you're saving your budget for that, then please do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to talk about. Let's talk about the Rancor and just.
Yeah, I totally forgot,
because that was a major part of this episode.
Yeah, it was. He got a baby Rancor.
All of that was amazing. The CGI was incredible.
Yeah.
The shot from the point of view of the Rancor, and
seeing
it's like blurry eyed, and
Yeah.
it clears, and then it's Boba.
I did love that.
I love that they brought up the Rancor, and like I recognized it immediately as soon as they showed it. And I'm all about the Rancor. It was really cool. And I love Danny
Trejo.
I love Danny Trejo. You guys, when we watched it, you guys were like, I don't know about Danny Trejo. I'm like, dude, freaking, I love it. I think it's hilarious.
It's great. It's just
I cannot think.
I can't get over it. I'm sorry. I'm trying.
I cannot think of a single character I would want Danny Trejo to play more than a Rancor.
Oh, it's perfect casting. And honestly, I wonder if the rest of this episode was better. That I'd be like, and Danny Trejo's in this. Like maybe I would have been a little higher on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe so. And we talked about this, that Robert Rodriguez did the Spy Kids movie, right?
Yep.
And he and Danny Trejo was involved in that, and they're good friends on that kind of stuff. And that's probably why he was in it, which is a slippery slope of like your buddies producing Star Wars films, and we get it'll take me out if they ever put like Will Ferrell in like a Star Wars
film. Well, and the water merchant was the guy from Dodgeball.
And from Barry. That took me out because I'm like, I don't know this character's name because I'm just trying to like.
Yeah.
So
there's a balance.
It is a tricky balance, and one that George Lucas himself even recognized from the very beginning, which is why he didn't cast a lot of really big name actors for those original characters. He wanted, that was a principle. He wanted like new people.
If you're gonna do it, do Unkar Plutt. Put Simon Pegg in it, but put him in a giant prosthetic.
Yeah. But I liked it, and the Rancor stuff is cool. I love the Easter egg we got to. I've ridden beasts 10 times size of this, right?
Which has got to be I thought holiday special immediately.
Mythosaur.
I thought the Mythosaur.
Is that implied that Boba Fett has ridden Mythosaurs? Is that a thing?
I mean, it's implied. I think that's the word for it. It's implied.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think it's got to be that dinosaur from the holiday special. That would be my joke.
I don't remember that.
Because the gun was from the holiday special, so like, why not just keep leaning into it?
That's true.
But I think just to kind of circle back, I think what you brought up about giving the land back to the Tuskens in the end, like maybe it won't go that far. I do think the Tusken Warrior is going to come back. I think that there's a good reason that we did not see her there amongst them. And think about how cool it would be if Boba in present day time got in contact with a new Tusken tribe, starts talking to them, and you just see like the Tusken Warrior like come out of like one of the tents and like that's the chieftain of like this group. Now that'd be insane.
Boba Fett, the crime lord, like the Tuskens are loyal to him. He rides a flipping Rancor. Like, dude, nobody would challenge that.
Well, that's always the history of all the best like crime lords in all these countries. You have to be able to mediate between all native populations, rich people, poor people. Like the best crime lords are beloved and respected because they actually touch all the communities.
Yeah.
So I mean that could be cool, and I mean, but that being said, based on this episode, the Rancor could be like absolutely killed next episode. Like,
I know. Real talk, and I will say if we totally managing expectations, if we're totally done with the Tuskens and we don't see the Warrior again after all this build up, I'm going to be very upset and disappointed by that.
Yeah.
And I will openly say that was a really bad choice.
Because they did, and I think it's the flaw in good execution. You did such a good job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But again, we'll see.
Listen, as Star Wars fans, it is okay to like things. I don't want people or dislike things. I don't want people to leave this episode with us being, oh man, these guys are so negative. Like I don't want you to have that experience, right? I mean, it is perfectly acceptable to like and dislike things, right? I think like trying to find the positive aspects of things that you enjoy, even if you have criticism of it, is how you be a good fan. This is how you maintain. This is a lifetime thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't fall into that trap of raging about something and trying to cancel it and all this crap, right?
Nope.
You got to find the things you like about the thing you dislike the most,
Yep.
right?
And we're watching next week, and you know what? I don't have time to rewatch stuff as it is anyway, so this isn't going to be in one of my 3 episodes I rewatch in my life.
Yeah. Totally fine. Yeah, there has to be a healthy give and take with being a diehard fan of anything. And I think a lot of Star Wars fans get that wrong, and I hope that we can continue to preach that message as Utini does.
That's it, man. But next week, we will be back in our respective homes, except Wes, who's now in Asheville forever.
Nice. Yep.
But we want to thank you all for tuning into this possibly once-in-a-lifetime episode of Bounty Hunt. Crazy episode for it to be, but we're very excited already for next week, which, again, probably a different director, probably a different story, and will be more Boba Fett. But that will do it, my friends, for this week's episode of Bounty Hunt. A special thank you goes out to Cheryl Bell, OK Endar, Jeremy Kazina, JG Kars, Earl Q, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Steiner on our Jedi High Council, and Matt Billington, Tyler Latour, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. Thank you for all your support at utini.com/Patreon. Go ahead and tell us all your thoughts about the Book of Boba Fett. We got a channel in our Discord at utini.com/Discord. Please use spoiler tags as appropriate to make sure everyone can enjoy it as they wish. If you want to follow us individually, we are on Twitter at Living Force Pod. Every Monday night, we're live on YouTube. We're at Eric Eilerson, at Doc Star Wars MD, at C. Hankel, and at Boss Wes. Until next time, I don't know, man.
End it with a 4-person high five.
See you next week.